Have you been enjoying the con so far?
Oh yeah, it's been a lot of fun. You know, I first started going to conventions back in the '90s, and it was mainly comic book conventions. And it's been a real eye-opener to see with anime conventions how much of the cosplay sort of dominates the atmosphere of it.
Yeah.
And I always tell people back in the '90s at these comic book conventions, maybe 1 out of 20 people, 1 out of 30 people would be dressed up as something, some kind of superhero.
Yeah.
Boy, these conventions, it's like
everybody's dressing up.
Every other person is dressed up. And,
yeah. So, how's your schedule been like today regarding like panels and stuff like that?
Well, it started kind of late. I didn't have anything until 2 o'clock, and so the morning was very laid back. But then from the afternoon on, it's been pretty go, which is kind of exciting.
I've actually been following your YouTube channel.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Really nice.
Thanks.
I've always been wondering what made you decide to do a YouTube channel.
You know, it's a funny thing. Part of it was out of panic, actually, because I was working on this Miki Falls series back around 2007. I think it was due to come out. And it wasn't so much a matter of wanting to hype the series as wanting to kind of save the series from complete failure, because I had this feeling that there was going to be no promotion from the publishers, which is not to point any fingers, because you know, the publishers can only promote so many things.
Yeah.
And so as we got closer and closer to the publication date, I thought, man, if I don't start doing something, no one's going to hear about this book. It's going to sink like a stone, and all this work, you know, like 670 pages of you know, graphic novel storytelling would just kind of go down the toilet if no one knew this book was out there. So I turned to YouTube and I started doing these videos to kind of, at first they were pretty straightforward author, you know, hey, I got this book coming out, everyone check out what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. You know, and those videos predictably got 20, 30 views or whatever, and that was it. And then one of the videos I did, I decided to point the camera at myself while I worked on one of the pages. It was like the 4th video I did, or the 3rd, or something like that. And suddenly the views increased.
Skyrocketed.
And I got, well, it didn't, I don't know if it skyrocketed, but I got maybe over 100 views or something for that video compared to these previous videos. I was like, oh, they like that. They like when to see me draw. So that was really where it started, and I started doing more and more of them. And as time went on, as you can see, they became more and more legitimate drawing tutorials, and I just, I was constantly listening to the viewers. The early videos had no music, and people kept saying, you know, during the time lapse you should add music, and I was like, I don't know, that's going to be a hassle. But I finally started doing it, and you know, they were right. It improves the viewing experience. It just makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah. So, what really inspired you to do the anime style and regarding when you started drawing?
Well, you know, my early work was not so much anime inspired. I was just more of a straightforward American artist in the early days. But I had gone to teach English in Japan when I was in my 20s. Lived in Japan, in the north of Japan, from 1991 to 93, altogether about 2 years and 2 months. And so at that time I was studying the language, I was soaking up all aspects of the culture, including the pop culture and anime and stuff like that. But really what happened, and again we circle back to Miki Falls, but what happened is I had this love story that I wanted to tell. I was finding trouble figuring out an exciting way of doing it, a way that would excite me as an artist. And it suddenly hit me, hey, what if I have it take place in Japan? All the characters can be Japanese. And what if I challenge myself to adopt a manga style, or a style that's sort of a blend of manga styles and my own sensibilities? And so that was really where I started deliberately trying to do a crash course in manga drawing styles. And I would say it was sort of semi-successful. If you look at Miki Falls, the artwork is not, you know, maybe exactly where it needs to be in terms of appealing to a widespread manga audience. But it certainly got me started down that road to where, you know, when Brody's Ghost came around, I feel like I learned some lessons from this book in terms of trying to be a little more true to manga drawing styles in terms of facial proportions and different stuff like that.
So, you actually have some of your books here. So, my real question I always like to ask people who have been in this kind of industry for a long time is, what was your most memorable experience during your career? Like something interesting?
Wow, I mean, there've been a bunch of them. I think one of the big things in terms of just getting published, I have to reach back to this one called Akiko or Akiko on the planet Smoo. This came out in the very end of 1995, and this really launched me into the world of being a professional comic book creator. The drawing style has hints of manga influence throughout, but it really is not, I was not attempting to do a manga style. At this stage, I was trying to do more of a classic American cartooning style, or almost children's bookish.
It's almost like the comics,
Yeah,
comic strip on the Sunday paper.
Yeah, there you go. That's kind of where I was at this time. But you'll never forget your first published book or series, and this definitely was what got my name on the map. But another funny thing to bring it right up to date, because you ask about a memorable experience. Last Friday, I did this video for YouTube called the Realism Challenge #3. I don't know if you will have seen this thing, but I took a playing card and tore it into 4 pieces and tried to replicate it as accurately as possible right next to it. And it became my first viral video, in the sense of a video that got huge numbers of views in a really short period of time. It may even at this point have reached 3 million, but it passed 1 million within the first 72 hours. I've definitely never had that happen.
Oh, wow.
And I think it passed 2 million a couple of days after that. And it was all over the place. It was on Reddit, it was on 9gag, I don't know if you know that site, but a lot of young people are going to that on a daily basis. Yahoo News, after I got down here, did a video segment in which a woman, anchor, or not an anchor woman, but sort of like a host woman, is describing the sort of mini phenomenon of this video having gone viral. So that really is kind of unforgettable in terms of my YouTube career. And it just goes to show you, you build towards something like that. It doesn't necessarily happen overnight, right? I mean, I'm up to 210 something videos. And
Yeah.
I had kind of given up on the idea of any of them going viral at this stage. In fact, I thought they would always be a slow build from here on out. But yeah, that one, for whatever reason, that was the one.
It worked.
It captured people's
yeah.
imagination, and everyone started sharing it, and that's the definition of viral.
Yeah, well, for our fans and aspiring artists, do you have any tips or words of wisdom for them?
Yeah, well, I think people are always curious about how do you get published, how do you get started, and I always tell them it's a 2-part process, and the most important part is the first part. The first part is to create a publishable story of some kind, and they call it spec work in the industry, meaning it's a speculative endeavor. No one's paying you to do this, but you must act as if you are being paid and create something really polished and professional. And to the degree to which it is a story, a complete story with a beginning and a middle and an end, you are giving yourself a real, strong step forward towards publication. So this comic here, Akiko on the Planet Smoo, is an actual example of that. I did 33 pages. This first story, I was not being paid to do it. I just did it hoping to be able to get it published. And a few years later, I mailed it around. So the first part of the advice is make a publishable story of some kind. The second part of the advice is to get it under the noses of as many people as you can. Now, in my day, the early 90s, the internet was not really up and running so much. And so I was mailing photocopies around. These days, I think you would build your audience on the internet by way of DeviantArt, maybe, if you know that site, and or YouTube, if you can somehow get a story into video form, or any number of sites to build up your audience. But I think the key to that And you know, as a podcaster, the key to that is keeping to a schedule, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you have to deliver this thing again and again and build
Yep.
your audience. So that's what I would be doing. I'm kind of doing it in video form, just as becoming a video creator, and committing finally to Friday as my day. I will always have a new video on Friday.
Right.
But I would advise anyone who wants to break into the business of comics, graphic novels, or any kind of storytelling of that type, adopt that same formula of delivering a segment of it, every day, every week on the same day, and that's how you're going to grow your audience, and eventually catch the attention of a publisher and get published.
Well, thanks, Mark. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure talking.
Yep. Well, you heard it here, folks. We'll see you later at the con.